Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another episode here. I'm your host, Drew Sample, here on the Columbus Wired Overreaction Sunday. And I am joined by my co-host, as usual, Mr. Andrew T. Evans. And we are joined by our semi-bi-weekly co-host. It's about every other week, I'd say, Dillon. You can jump on here with us. It's wonderful. Dillon Davis. So we got the big game coming on Saturday night, the playoff. The first playoff is here. Looking forward to breaking this game down with you guys, how you think it's going to go. Right now, the weather's saying it's going to be cold. And is that going to play? Is the cold going to be a factor or not? I'm excited, guys. I've been radically optimistic about this game. Maybe, and I know I'm setting myself up for a huge black pill if it doesn't happen. I'm going to be Doomer fan number one. But what are your guys' thoughts so far? Andy, you're looking into stats. It's here. It's a week away. We talked a little bit about it last week. So, Andy, what are your thoughts on this so far? How do you think this game's going to go? What are you seeing?
When you look at it from a stats standpoint, Tennessee this is going to be an interesting challenge for Ohio State. We saw the challenge that they faced against Michigan when they went up against a good rushing defense, a really, really, really good rushing defense, and Ohio State couldn't get the job done. They're facing yet again another good rushing defense. Is Ryan Day going to revert back to his Michigan game plan and play to his own pride and try and run the ball down Tennessee's throat, a rushing defense that right now is ranked right behind Ohio State nationally as the 8th best in the nation? Or is he going to try and play it a little smarter and not get himself so entrenched in the game plan like he did with Michigan and just let Chip Kelly do his thing? Because I am in firm belief that Ryan Day was too involved in that game plan, and he wanted to play, that is for Michigan, and he wanted to play it to his own pride. He wanted to put the soft narrative to bed, and unfortunately he cut off his nose to spite his face, and it came back and it completely backfired on him. So the thing is, though, it's not like Ohio State didn't try to throw against Michigan. Will Howard, I'm not sure what happened to him in that game. We know the injury. Yeah, he got hurt at one point. They probably sent him back out a little too early. But even then, he had already thrown an interception before he got hurt. His mind looked like he was just not mentally prepared for that game. He was hesitant. He was not the confident Will Howard we've seen all year long. This was a Michigan passing defense that was they were below average at best, and they were even playing without their best defensive guy, arguably, definitely their best defensive back in Will Johnson. And and he still had his worst game of the year. So, just kind of going off from a stats standpoint, I'm going to hand it over to Dillon to get his thoughts. But, this is going to be a hell of a challenge. This is going to be a hell of a challenge for Ohio State. And after what we saw against Michigan, if, once again, Ryan Day can put his pride aside and let Chip Kelly call a Chip Kelly game, I think Ohio State's got a hell of a shot. But if he doesn't, and if Ryan Day tries to control the narrative of the offense, Ohio State's in trouble, and they're going to lose the football game.
As the boxing adage goes, styles make fights. So, this style of fight is a lot like what we just saw Ohio State take on with the Michigan game. And obviously Ohio State came into that game completely unprepared with a game plan that was, hard to fathom, still hard to fathom today. It'll be hard to fathom for as long as you ever think about that game and you can remember how it went and what those two teams were. It'll be hard to fathom, truly, because it just doesn't make any sense. And that's to a man. You talk to anybody about that game, whether it's a Michigan person, Ohio State person, national people, to a man or a woman for that matter. hard to fathom. Nobody can even begin to, maybe, kind of infer why Ohio State did what they did in that game. So with that being said, you would expect a wildly different game. I don't say wildly different, but you would expect a very different approach from Ohio State in this game, and it better be, obviously, because again, it's a similar style. Look, Tennessee, as Andy mentioned, that's the 8th ranked rush defense in the country, so they're very good. We know that. But what Tennessee's not, Tennessee's pass defense and their pass rush and just everything about their pass defense as a whole, hardly a juggernaut in that sense. Look, in their two losses, I think Tennessee had a total of 2 sacks in those games. And both of those teams, Arkansas and Georgia being the 2 losses, both those teams racked up more than 450 yards of offense, so mainly through the air. I think Georgia had like 3.4 yards per carry in that game, but they threw for over 400. Arkansas also threw for more than 350. Again, that quarterback, there's nothing special about him. So, look, they're vulnerable in the pass, and they don't generate a huge pass rush. I think Ohio State has 6 more sacks than them on the season. Tennessee's somewhere in around the 40s, maybe even 50s in sacks this year, total sacks. And Ohio State has like 6 more, I believe. I think I saw, and nobody would call this Ohio State pass rush a dominant pass rush this season. So as we all thought Ohio State should have done or needed to do in that Michigan game, just throw the football, get your receivers involved. You have all that talent on the perimeter, just throw the football again. And as Andy alluded to, I don't know how much Will Howard's health factored into that, or there's not trusting him for one reason or the other, whether it was questionable early decisions or the injury or a combination of both. But the bottom line is I would expect Ohio State to come into this game and air it out. And if they do, they're going to have a chance, because they're, that's not a juggernaut Tennessee pass defense. Obviously, if they try to run the football right at those 3 defensive linemen, talking about Pierce and Norman Lott and Thomas, like, those guys are really good. All 3 of those guys are probably going to be NFL players. If they try to run right at those guys, it's going to be a long day again for that Ohio State offense. But if they air the football out, I think they'll be able to protect Will Howard. If they do that with those receivers, Ohio State's going to have a chance of moving the ball fairly regularly. And if they do that, then obviously, you have a good chance of winning the game. Defensively for Ohio State, obviously, Dillon Sampson is really good. So, it comes down to that for Tennessee. If Tennessee runs the football with great success, or even with decent success, that's going to be a tough day for the Ohio State defense. But if they can bottle that up, and again, we talk about Tennessee's rush defense, Ohio State's has been really good this year as well. So if Ohio State can limit Dillon Sampson and make Nico have to throw the football and make plays in the pass game, I like Ohio State's chances in this game. I do. So that's, those are 2 big ifs, but the path to victory for Ohio State is very clear. And it's a lot like it was for the Michigan game too. So if they can stay out of their own way, maybe they can get to it.
Yeah, I think the defense played great against Michigan. When you look at the touchdown drive we did have at the end of that first half, when we were throwing the ball, getting the ball in the hands of our talented players, I mean, that's going to open up the run game. I mean, and I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you get play action, you get some times for Travion Judkins. The nice thing is, though, both those dudes are good to check down to and dump the ball to go make plays. But you got to throw the ball, and so I'm pretty optimistic. I like the Buckeyes in this game. I think overwhelmingly, I've been hearing from the Buckeye Nation, the Buckeyes are going to lose. I don't think they mentally have it after that Michigan game. And I just hope that, the Buckeye fans still show up and they're loud. We should have quite the home field advantage, even though apparently Tennessee fans managed to buy some OSU tickets. But I'm pretty. Do you guys think the cold weather is going to hurt Ohio State? I mean, there's a lot of talks of that. I kind of implied that with the Michigan game, like maybe we just didn't play well because it was cold, but then it's like, no, that's just an excuse. The team wasn't mentally there to execute on the offensive side of the ball. So where it's supposed to be cold. Do you guys think it hurts Tennessee, helps Tennessee? I mean, I know that when they were playing Georgia and it was 50 degrees, their reports were on the sideline during the game that Tennessee players looked cold and their teeth were chattering.
Yeah, I don't buy for a second that the weather's going to matter one bit. precipitation would matter. Obviously, snow would matter, and it wouldn't be a benefit to Ohio State. This game's not going to benefit Ohio State weather-wise any more than it's not going to benefit Ohio State. It just won't be a benefit. Yeah, it's going to be cold out there, but anybody who's played out in the cold before you get to run around, it's hot.
It hurts a little bit more when you get hit. That's
yeah, and the ball's heavier, the harder. We know those things, but it's not going to be a significant impact. Again, if there were snow, then that would impact the game, and I don't think it would impact the game in Ohio State's favor. But I don't think the fact that it's just cold, it's not going to be a significant factor at all. And Tennessee, look, it's not warm in Tennessee right now. It was snowing pretty good the last couple of days, so they've been practicing out in it. So it's not going to be a complete shock to them when they step out in out of the locker room in Ohio Stadium on Saturday, and they're like, holy shit, it's 18 degrees out there. It's going to be cold. Don't make no two ways about it. It's going to be cold, but it's not going to be a complete shock to their system. I'm sure they've been practicing it a lot lately, and it's been pretty cold down in Knoxville. So,
yeah, I completely agree. The weather right now, it is 5 degrees warmer in Knoxville than it is here in Columbus. Right. It's currently 43 degrees in Columbus. It's 48 down in Knoxville. So the weather is absolutely going to have zero impact on Tennessee. And that's the thing. We Buckeye fans, Big Ten fans, even overall, have been clamoring to have an SEC team come up north and play football, Big Ten football in December. Okay, we got our wish. Well, guess what? It's an SEC team that's weather is pretty comparable here in Central Ohio. So, it's not going to have a factor whatsoever. And like you said, Dillon, I mean, they've been out there practicing in it. They're getting ready for this. Yeah, the weather's going to have zero impact on Tennessee and how they play. And maybe it has more of an impact on Ohio State. I don't know, but they practice outside too there at the Woody. So, I agree. No impact at all.
Well, do you think are our fans going to be up for this game? Are they going to show up and ready to be a difference maker? Or do you think the Buckeye Nation's deflated and they've already given up because we lost to Michigan and the world's over?
Just a story as old as time with Ohio State fans. For as long as that game is exciting, as long as Ohio State's playing well, as long as they're making plays and keeping the fans into it, the shoe will be jumping on Saturday. Oh, it'll be rocking. It'll be a great atmosphere. It'll be awesome. But the moment that nervous energy starts to set in, if Tennessee goes 11 plays on the opening drive to take a 7-0 lead, it'll be like a Morgan there, because that's what Ohio State is. It's just a pit of nervous energy in those kinds of games. Even just any game that ends up being close. But for as long as Ohio State, I mean, look, Ohio State fans, Ohio Stadium, the atmosphere, it's a great front runner atmosphere. Awesome. One of the best in the country, front runner atmospheres. But the moment things aren't going well, or that nervous energy starts to build up, that's the shoe that people talk about when they say there's nothing special about that atmosphere. So Ohio State has will go a long way in dictating what that atmosphere is like. The players, the team will go a long way in dictating what that atmosphere is like, which is unfortunate. But I hope at some point we get to see what you would expect a night playoff game in the Horseshoe to be like. Let Ohio State be the one who goes 11 plays on the opening drive of the game to take a 7-0 lead, and that place will be jumping. But that's all dependent on how the game goes. That's how it always is at Ohio Stadium in these types of games.
Yeah, agreed. I can remember growing up, my dad, we sit there and watch games, and he would just be like, God, what is going on with this crowd? They're sitting on their hands. And this is nothing new. Nothing new with Ohio State fans. We want to sit here and rip on Michigan for being a wine and cheese crowd. Well, the fact is that Ohio State may be worse, because they, quite frankly, they come, and you're absolutely right, Dillon. They go as the team goes, instead of like, hey, come on, damn it, let's get loud. Let's really get behind the defense here. You got Jack Sawyer out there in a critical situation, throwing his hands up, trying to get the crowd. And okay, the crowd started getting, a little fired up when Jack Sawyer's out there during the Michigan game throwing his hands up. He shouldn't have to throw his hands up. That crowd should be absolutely going bonkers the minute that the Michigan offense took the field. And it should be the same way for when Tennessee takes the field. That crowd should be going absolutely berserk from the minute that Tennessee's offense steps on the field. And we'll see. We'll see. Because if Tennessee is steadily moving the ball down the field and they're making progress and then they score a touchdown, yeah, and let's say Ohio State's offense comes out, goes 3 and out like we've seen them to start some games, and Tennessee then maybe goes down and kicks another field goal or something and they're up like 10-0, that crowd will be dead. That crowd will be dead until Ohio State proves some sort of life in that game. But until that happens, if Tennessee jumps out early, yeah, this crowd is going to suck. And it's funny because Andre Turrentine, who is from Tennessee, who is now playing for Tennessee, but had committed to Ohio State and spent a year up here, and came out and made that crack about how Ohio State crowd really nothing special, and SEC fans and SEC crowds are a lot louder than what he heard in Ohio Stadium. I completely agree with him. Every time I watch a game on TV that's an SEC game, they're going berserk, bonkers. And then Ohio State, oh, good play, William. Good play. Good pass to Jeremiah there. Yep. And, yeah, if the crowd does not come with it in this game, I mean, then there ain't no home field advantage. Hell, Tennessee's fans might get louder than Ohio State's fans, the supposed 30% that they're talking about that might be filling up the shoe.
I believe that there will be 30% of that stadium wearing Tennessee orange.
Yeah.
I do believe that. I don't think it'll be more than that. I mean, there are some Tennessee fans. Look, Tennessee ball Twitter, as it's called, just the most biggest sideshow you'll ever see on social media. Balls Twitter. It's a real thing. They take pride in it. It's truly it's an experience. Not a good one. Nothing good about it, but it's an experience. It's an experience seeing ball Twitter. But I know a lot of them are talking about taking things over. And I know some of it's just kind of being facetious and talking shit ahead of the game. But some of it they believe it because again they're false Twitter. But going back to that atmosphere. I said this during the Indiana game and after. Anybody who says Ohio Stadium can't get louder, it's not a loud atmosphere. Bullshit. Because there are moments when, yeah, it is. That Indiana game was one of them. The second half of that Indiana game, the joint was jumping.
Made a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, Indiana Signetti talked about it after the game. Ryan Day talked about it after the game. The joint was jumping. Crowd was awesome. But again, it's transactional. That relationship between the fans and then the team and the atmosphere, it's transactional. You give the fans something to cheer about, and they will show up. If you don't, they sit on their hands. It's just a purely transactional situation. But anybody who says that the Ohio Stadium's not loud at all, that's again the Indiana game. Ohio Stadium's as loud as any place in the country this year for an atmosphere. Neyland's great, obviously. Neyland's great. The Swamp's great. Tiger Stadium, Death Valley at night, all those things great. But Ohio Stadium can rival any of those things when it wants to. When the fans want to, when it has a reason to. Again, purely transactional. They had a reason to. They were given a reason to in the Indiana game. Atmosphere was great. You saw the entirety of the Michigan game that there was just that nervous energy of what's going to go wrong next or how they're going to screw this up. So we'll see. We'll see how the game goes. That'll decide what the atmosphere is like in Ohio Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah.
So looking forward, if the Buckeyes do pull off this win, it is kind of the ultimate road to redemption for Ryan Day. I mean, he gets an SEC team, then he gets to play Oregon, get that win back. We can beat the invading Big Ten champions since we lost to the invaders. Classic Big Ten did. And then after that, it's potentially Texas, which is another SEC team. So I think that. To me, it's kind of exciting. I think it's kind of is the path of redemption that Ryan Day needs amongst the Buckeye Nation since he just dropped 4 to Michigan. But again, it's odd because OSU's been dominating the Big Ten for the last 20 years, and we have one of the worst records in the postseason against SEC teams. We've won 1 game versus when you look at Michigan versus the SEC or even some other Big Ten schools. Where do you guys think? I feel like if we win this game, it's a huge. And Ryan Day talked about this last week, and it's a huge chance to just build momentum. And I think the further we get into the playoffs, the better it's going to look for the Buckeyes. Personally. I don't know.
Dylan,
I
go
guess it's
ahead.
not really a
Take it
question,
away,
but-
sir.
Well, I mean, in terms of the road, yeah, like the road, people talked about how difficult the road is. Maybe one of the more difficult ones in the playoffs, and that's true to some degree. I kind of look at it as the fact that if Ohio State can get through this game, I don't want to say get that monkey off their back with the SEC, because I don't think that's anything they're worried about or anything that's on their mind. But after the fact that they were to win the game, that would resonate, I'm sure. But to do that, if they went out to Pasadena and beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl, I'd be of the mindset at that point that Ohio State's going to go win the national championship. I tend to think that whoever, if you do get that Ohio State Tennessee game or Ohio State Oregon game in the Rose Bowl or on January 1st and in the quarterfinals, that the winner of that game is going to go win the national title. So yeah, momentum's a real thing. I got so tired of listening to Ryan Day talk about momentum and relating it to the wild card in the NFL, which is just stupid. He said it on signing day during our press conference on signing day. Said it again on Sunday after the selection show. And it got me thinking on Sunday when he said it again. So I went and looked at it. I put this on Twitter. I don't remember what the exact numbers are, but you go look at wild card teams and their success in the playoffs, and it's terrible. It's terrible. So Ryan Day keeps on talking about, we could do what the wild card teams do and win that first round and get some momentum. Yeah, they don't win it very often. Like the number of times a wild card team's gone to the Super Bowl, not good at all. So the fact that you're playing in this first round game, if you're going to relate it to the NFL, doesn't bode well at all. But I understand what he's saying, that if they can win this first game, the momentum will be real, especially coming off that Michigan game and how bad this program has been reeling. If they can fully put that to bed by winning this game, then Ohio State will have some real momentum. But momentum is only as good as as the players on the field. As they say, it's not about the X's and O's, the Jimmys and the Joes. And Ohio State will have momentum if they win this game because of what they will have went and done and went and proved, which means that offensive line, if they decide to shuffle it around again, which they've alluded to, I tend to think that they won't. I think it'll look the same as it did against Michigan. But if they will win this game, they will win and prove that, like, hey, there's still hope for this offensive line. Maybe there's some hope for that run game. And by extension, obviously, the offense can get back to what we came to know this season. So that's your momentum right there, not because they beat Tennessee or beat an SEC team. Your momentum is the fact that, like, oh, hey, maybe there's still hope for this run game after all. And, oh, hey, this defense really is that damn good. That's your momentum right there. So,
yeah, there's no doubt that Ryan Day is going to get a stay of execution, even though Ross Bjork pretty much came out and stayed the stay for at least another year, right, by saying, hey, Ryan Day is coming back. But certainly, things can always change as far as Ross Bjork saying that now, and then after Saturday, what happens and how does it look if Ohio State loses?
If Ohio State gets embarrassed, I think Ryan Day is going to have a harder shot of making it out of Ohio Stadium than Assad did out of Syria.
That's true. He's not getting fired. Make no mistake about it. Short of him punching a player like Woody Hayes, he's not getting fired. So we can put that to bed. But you're right about him getting out of the stadium. That's a whole other story. So,
well, yeah. Let me tell you what. Assad had some help getting out. Not sure Ryan Day is going to have anyone wanting to help him get out of that stadium alive. But certainly, this is a huge game for Ryan Day. Make no mistake about it, because it will. Number one, Ohio State wins. They have slightly improved that 1-13 or 1-14. Technically, I believe they're like 3-14 against the SEC in the postseason. However, two of those wins are grandfathered when they beat Texas A&M in the 1987 Cotton Bowl and the 1999 Sugar Bowl. So against traditional SEC teams, they've got one win. Technically, they should have four because they beat Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl in 2010 season to 2011, but that got wiped off the books because of Tattoo-Gate. So we're back to square one. Let's exclude Texas A&M. Ohio State has one win in the postseason against a traditional SEC team. That was a huge win over Alabama when Ohio State was the number 4 team in the country. Alabama was number 1. They beat them in the semifinal to, of course, then go on to beat Oregon for the national championship. But yes, Ryan Day gets a win over an SEC team. That will look good. They're number 1. Obviously now kind of puts a little salve on the wound after the loss to the Rodents. That's number 2. Number 3, now you get your rematch against Oregon, which, Buckeye fans are chomping at the bit. And let's just slow down. I hope that a lot of Buckeye fans are not looking past Tennessee to get to Oregon. And I think that's some prevailing thought. A lot of Buckeye fans, man, they win this game. They beat Tennessee. We're in a rematch with Oregon. Slow down. Let's take it one game at a time. Here is my issue coming up with Tennessee, and you alluded towards it, Dillon, and some of the things that Ryan Day kept saying in that Sunday presser of the day of the selection show, after the selection show. He kept just coming out and hammering that point home about how just important it is, how imperative it is that they need to get this win to build momentum. To me, he's already winding up tighter than a drum how he had his guys going into playing Michigan. And one of the reasons why they lost, not just because of the stupid game plan that he formulated, but because he just approaches this as, damn it, you've got to beat Michigan. You just have to. When Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel did it, it was just a different vibe and approach to Ryan Day. Ryan Day is getting that. You talk about nervous energy, Dillon, in the stadium. That's Ohio State players in approaching all of their postseason goals, right? Beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, go win the national championship. Those are our goals. And Ryan Day just gets them so fired up to the point that they're now wound tighter than a drum, and they come out and we saw the end result against Michigan. And he just kept hammering that point on Sunday after the selection show. Gotta win, gotta win, gotta win, gotta win, gotta win, gotta win. And I'm just like, you know what? That's why I am in the firm belief that Ohio State is going to lose this game simply because of Ryan Day's approach. Unless he has been taking a completely different tact the last week and continues to take a different tact this week, which I don't think is going to be the case, Ohio State is going to lose that football game against Tennessee simply because of Ryan Day's approach.
Ryan Day's track record in these situations has actually been quite the opposite. Now, whether that's the case this week or not, I don't know. But his track record in these situations, the Michigan games is a standalone thing. It's its own issue. We know that. That's part of the problem. Is it's been its standalone own issue because of how much did they make that game. But his track record in these situations, whether you go back to the 2020 Clemson game, certainly the Georgia game, the lead up to that, his track record with this is that he's had his team very relaxed and ready to play. He made that comment on Sunday as well that he wanted his team to play free without fear of consequences. Now, if that happens, that remains to be seen. But I actually think Ryan Day's track record in these situations would suggest otherwise. But again, you'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell very easily on Sunday or on Saturday. So
yeah, I don't think last year's Missouri game was a good example of it, since we had like all those transfers leave and then Marvin Harrison Jr. sit out, and then we had offensive line players not playing. There's a lot of weird shit that was going on the offensive side of the ball going into that game. But our defense played lights out for what it was. For an offense that couldn't do anything. They barely, they lost 17-3 or 14-3 or something like that. It was a painful game to watch, but defensively they played lights out. And I think I'm on the side with Dillon. I think that I don't hear most fans talk about Oregon. I'm hearing most fans saying we're going to lose. And I think that's, like, to me, that's usually when the Buckeyes kind of like rally and look good. I remember how many people are saying we're going to get blown out by Georgia. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're just as good as them. And we had all of our running backs are hurt and not a very good defense that year. So,
in fairness to the fans, like the fans could think of whatever they want to. They could be they can be making national championship game, trip plans right now. They can think whatever they want to. It's whether Ohio State thinks about that that would be the problem. The fans can look ahead all they want to. It's not going to make a damn bit of difference on the game. So I would advise it. Like Andy said, I wouldn't advise it. I would, stay in the moment and enjoy this moment because this season could be over, in a week. So that's what I would advise fans. But fans can do whatever they want to because it's not going to make a bit of difference on the game. I hope Ohio State's not looking ahead, and I don't think they are. But that would be a problem, obviously.
I hope our kicker can make field goals. Number one, if he made field goals, we'd be having a very different conversation right now. We'd be talking about what just happened in the Big Ten championship. And then, I think that, I think the guys are, I mean, from the sound of it Sunday, like, yeah, his analogy to the wild card of the NFL was pretty dumb. But, like, he made it, he sounded like he was doing a good prep. He's like, it's a light week this week. They got finals. Next week's when practice really starts. More of a mental thing that, like, mainly, lifting and conditioning from the sound of it, and then some meetings. But I think the Buckeyes are going to do fine. I think the Buckeyes are ready for the moment. I think they could easily get momentum going against Tennessee with the right game plan. I mean, that is the biggest question. What game plan are we going to have? And I think the Buckeyes could win this game pretty easily, especially building momentum. Tennessee's not a team that plays well from behind. If you look at their losses, that's what happened in the other game, just like what Dillon said. And I think the Buckeyes match up really well against Tennessee. It's just the biggest thing is, like, are we going to just run the ball up the middle 30 plays? I hope not. So with that, what do you guys, should we talk about the other playoff games? I mean, we got the Indiana State Championship Friday. We got the private school versus the public school. I'm pretty excited about this game more than any of the other playoff matchups besides Ohio State, Tennessee. Do you guys want to talk about the other playoff games?
Go ahead, Andy.
Not really.
Not really.
I could care less.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, Arizona State, Texas, all right, yeah, whatever. Texas probably win by 3 touchdowns. Notre Dame, Indiana, I'm kind of interested, the battle for the state of Indiana. It'll just be interesting to see what kind of Indiana team. I mean, we pretty much know about Notre Dame, pretty much. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it'll be a good fight. I think Kurt Cignetti is going to have the Hoosiers ready to rock against Marcus's Fighting Irish. Other than that, what's the other game?
Penn State and SMU.
Yeah, I mean, who the hell cares about Penn State and SMU? This is going to sound blasphemous. I'm kind of an SMU fan right now. I would love to see SMU, including Ohio State, beat Ohio State and go win a national championship. SMU, they've been obviously garbage for years, and the fact that they made it in, it's kind of a feel-good story. Of course, their feel-good story is after the fact that they cheated and were given the death penalty back in the 80s, the only football program to ever receive the death penalty. But the fact that they're here, and I think it would be kind of a crazy story. I'm rooting for the Mustangs against Penn State. Why not? Like I said, screw it. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, I could care less about Texas, Arizona State. I really could care less about Penn State, SMU, and I'm interested about Notre Dame, Indiana. I think it'll be fun to watch. So, and aside from obviously our game with the Vols on Saturday night.
It's Texas Clemson.
Or did I say? I'm sorry. That's right, because they're going to go on to play Arizona State. Yeah, my bad. Either way, that just goes to show you how much I care about who the hell Texas is playing. Arizona State, Clemson, whatever. Clemson, the fact that, I
actually think it's the best game of the playoff outside of Ohio State, Tennessee. So, whether you're interested in watching it or not, I'm not sure if I really care to watch it, but I think it's probably the best matchup outside of Ohio State.
Texas and Clemson?
Yeah. But I think Indiana's absolutely going to get humbled. People are sleeping on Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a really good football team, and people just after that Northern Illinois loss at home wrote them off. And Notre Dame's gotten better and better every year, and they're playing really good football right now. So I think Indiana's in for a rude awakening in that game. I don't expect it to be overly competitive, and certainly Indiana's not catching anybody off guard in that game either. So to think that they're going to catch Notre Dame sleeping, they're going to get Notre Dame's best effort. So I expect Notre Dame to roll in that football game. Sure as hell not rooting for Penn State. I don't subscribe to this whole Big Ten thing. Generally, yes, if I can recognize when it's good for the conference for a team to win. But for one, as I was always told growing up, it doesn't matter one damn bit who I root for. It doesn't change the outcome of the game. So I'll root for whoever the hell I want to, and be able to acknowledge when the game happens the way it happens. Like, okay, yeah, that's good for the Big Ten, which is why I'll never understand people who root for Michigan for the sake of the conference. One, it doesn't matter who you root for. You rooting for them won't help Michigan go win the football game. So I'll be damned if I ever get caught rooting for Michigan in a game. But I'll be able to acknowledge if they win the game, like, hey, that's good. That's a good look for the Big Ten. Same thing with Penn State. There, I hope they get their ass kicked at home. I hope they get embarrassed. But if they win the football game, I'll be able to say, well, good for the Big Ten. So,
I think for years that was the narrative, and I myself subscribed to that narrative, Dylan. I'll be honest with you. I kind of rooted for Michigan so that if they were as good as could quite possibly be, and if Ohio State beat them, it made at least Ohio State look better. As far as the conference is concerned, yeah, I root for the Big Ten, especially when it comes against the SEC, just because of that whole, who's got the bigger swinging dick mentality between the two conferences, and it's still going on right now. But now I think that's changed. The fact that there is a 12-team playoff, there's not as the number of spots that only 4 teams were fighting for. Well, now it's opened up a little bit. So now you got some more breathing room. And now, the fact that there's the provision of a conference champion, at least the top 4 conference champs getting a bye. Who the hell cares? You go out and win the Big Ten and you're undefeated, or you got 1 loss, you're getting a bye every year. And it doesn't matter how good or bad the competition in your conference is. You go win the Big Ten, you're going to automatically get a bye, unless you're like Clemson, where you got 3 losses and you need to win the conference championship just to get into the playoff. But otherwise, yeah, it doesn't matter now. So to your point, Dylan, I used to be that way. I'm not any longer, Screw the rest of the Big Ten. That's why I said I'm like rooting for SMU to beat Penn State. Not just because it's, Penn State, screw them, and I hate them. They're a Big Ten rival team. But like I said, I'd love to see just SMU's feel-good story. And at this point, who the hell cares about the Big Ten and how they look postseason? Go ahead, SEC fans, talk your trash. It doesn't matter.
I'm rooting for the Big Ten all the way. I'm one of those annoying fans. I'm tired of SEC fans talking all their shit, man. I'm going to be honest. I'd like to see the Big Ten go to the next round. Just so then it's like, all right, SEC, your 2 teams, your 1 team lost to Ohio State, and then they get to play, and we'll just see how it matches up. I think Penn State probably beats SMU. It's going to be cold. I don't think SMU's ready for that game.
I agree with that. I think that, yeah.
I think Indiana, Notre Dame is a super interesting game. We get to see how good both teams are. I think Notre Dame has looked very good ever since the Northern Illinois game, but they have not played the best teams. Army looked better, and then they just got their ass kicked by Navy last night. So it's like, But again, I think it's going to be an awesome environment. I think it's a great place to start the college playoff. I'm just excited about these games. I got my $10 parlay that I think is going to happen, and I'll probably lose it, but who cares? It's fun. That's my opinion. I feel like I'm a lot more optimistic than you guys.
About what, the Buckeye game?
about everything, yeah. I think
no.
Andy is definitely still on the pessimistic.
Oh, I'm the doom and gloom. I don't think Dylan's quite doom and gloom.
No.
I am.
I've been struggling with how I'm going to pick this game. But I'm leaning towards picking Ohio State to win the game. I'm not an optimist. I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I try to look at it and say, like, if my life depended on it, how do I think this football game is going to go? And that's what I'm going to pick. And right now I'm back and forth on it, but I think I'm going to pick Ohio State to win the game. Look, I think Ohio State's defensive line's primed to have a really good game in this game and really control it. I could be wrong. I said this one other time in 2021 going up to Ann Arbor in that Michigan game that I'll be damned if a team, is ever just going to line up and say, we're just going to run the ball down Ohio State's defense's throat and they can't stop it and they can't do anything about it, which is what I think Tennessee's going to need to do in this game. And I think I'm going to take Ohio State's defense to hold up on that. And if they can, look, Tennessee gave up I think a total of 9 sacks combined in their 2 losses. I think it was 4 to Georgia or 4 to Arkansas and 5 to Georgia. So I think Ohio State's defensive line is primed to have a really good game in this game, and I think it'll be one of the big storylines. So I think I'm leaning towards taking Ohio State to win the game.
I think if Ohio State can win in a dominant fashion, I think that's going to be, even if it's I'm not even saying the score has to be, you know, that was something like Kyle Turd was saying in that Tom Brady interview where Brady kind of broke down, like, why weren't the Buckeyes getting the ball in the hands of their skilled players? And Brady really like nailed it on how the poor execution of the Buckeyes, and it was perplexing, I feel like, for everybody who watched that game, even Michigan fans. Like, Michigan fans thought we were going to get there. They thought they were going to get killed, and then they were just shocked. And like I read some text messages from friends and family that I have that are Michigan fans. And they were just like, I couldn't believe it. Like, Ohio State just didn't execute. They looked like they had beat themselves before they even stepped on the field. And, you know, I just think the Buckeyes, you know, I think dominance has kind of been like since 2018 has kind of been like what the Buckeyes do. They dominate you offensively. They get you playing behind. And then and I think we kind of got away from that last year, but we still managed to win. This year, it's been like that in some games, but it hasn't been consistent since, you know, CJ Stroud left. So I'm looking to see that. I would like to see that again. I would like to see the Buckeyes win in a dominant fashion. There's no questions on the field. The Buckeyes show that they are arguably the most talented team that's in the playoff. But just because you're the most talented, especially in the age of mercenaries in college football, doesn't mean that your team plays well as a team. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing for the Buckeyes to go on and win, is to just play as a team, play together, show up. Because I still don't, I think Indiana was the closest we saw to them kind of like showing how good they are. But again, like, I think we have that one dominant game, and then the next week we look like shit against Michigan. So I think that's like we just need to be more consistent, and we need to go out there and play free, and we need to go out there and just leave it all on the field. And, don't get in our own way, get the hands of our playmakers. And I think and they just need to have fun. And nothing seemed fun about that Michigan game from the start.
Will Howard is the key to this game.
Yeah.
Will Howard is the key to this game, because once again, it's not like they didn't allow him to throw the football against Michigan. I mean, he threw the football 33 times and he only completed 58% of his passes with 2 interceptions, one of which came before the concussion, or supposed concussion, the rumored concussion, which you would hope that if he honestly had a concussion, they would not have allowed him to go back out there. I think that isn't that like breaking an NCAA protocol, that if a trainer on the sideline says, yeah, he's got a concussion. I mean, unless, the trainer's like, no, he's good to go.
Everybody seemed to be asleep on the sidelines for the Buckeyes. Who knows?
Yeah. So, but, Will Howard is the key, and they need Will Howard to go out there and play loose and free, because he just did not seem, even like I said before the hit that he took, did not seem like the same Will Howard that we had seen, just a confident Will Howard all year long. And he's going to be the key to the game. He is going to be the key to the win, because I don't think that Ohio State's going to be able to run the ball. They haven't looked great running the ball. I know, against Indiana and against Northwestern, pretty much all games this year but 2, they were able to run for over 100 yards. Those 2 games were Michigan and Nebraska, a close game in the shoe after having a bye week. After their first loss of the season at Oregon, they come back home with a 2-week layoff and play like poo against Nebraska. Nebraska's defense was loaded for bear. But at any rate, Will Howard's the key. He's the key. Ohio State, I don't have faith in their running game, but Will Howard, if Will Howard is Will Howard, the record-setting 80% for 6 games this year completion percentage Will Howard, then they've got a great opportunity to go out there and win, and maybe win handily. But if we see the Will Howard that we saw against Michigan, gonna be lights out, fellas.
Yeah, I totally agree
with that. For Ohio State,
I agree with Will Howard's probably the biggest. Well, the biggest offensive key for Ohio State. I think maybe the biggest offensive key for either team. He threw the ball 33 times in that game, but he went 4 and out on the final drive of the game when he had to throw the ball. So it really, I mean, they didn't throw the ball hardly any more than what they have all season long, which isn't going to do it. It's not going to cut it in this game. He has to throw the ball 40-plus times in this game. Because there's absolutely no reason to believe Ohio State's going to run the football in this game. No reason whatsoever. Anybody who comes to this game saying, "Oh, if Ohio State can get the run game going, throw it out the window." It's not going to happen. There's absolutely no reason to believe that's going to happen.
Unless you can get Will Howard involved in the game plan, like running some of those speed options, or if they can get him involved in running the ball, that could open things up. But otherwise, if it's traditional, let's run Travion 3rd and 10, draw play up the middle.
So So what you just said is basically short of something we haven't seen all year long, which we haven't seen him, be involved in that. So I don't anticipate that happening. So Ohio State's not going to run the football. He's going to have to throw the ball 40-plus times in this game. He's going to have to. And I know that's not Ohio State's comfort zone. I know nobody would want to go into a game saying that's how Ohio State has to win the game. But he'll have to, because they won't run the ball. There's no reason to believe they will. Tennessee's defensive front's every bit as good as Michigan, maybe arguably deeper than Michigan's defensive front. And Tennessee's going to load up. Obviously, I promise you, they watched that Michigan game. They've watched it probably multiple times. They know that if they load up the box and say, "You won't run the football against us, Ohio State. We'll take our chances in the back end." It's weird because Tennessee's going to take that chance, of course. They're going to say that's their quickest way to, that's their plan to win. But it also favors Ohio State because, again, that Tennessee defensive, that pass defense isn't anything special. So Ohio State should want to take their chances in that matchup too. And, therein lies maybe where the game ultimately is decided. But both of those teams are going to, need to say, Tennessee's going to have to say, "You're not going to run the football against us. Good luck in the pass game." And Ohio State's going to say, "We'll take our chances in that pass game. To hell with the run game." And we'll see how that ultimately shakes out. And Will Howard's gonna have to step up, but he's gonna have to throw the ball more than he ever has. I don't think there's any question about that. And if he doesn't, and Ohio State's game plan looks even remotely similar, not even exactly similar, but remotely similar to what we saw in that Michigan game, you're talking about another just absolute coaching malpractice. I genuinely, there's nothing that. Go ahead.
Oh, it's going to be a scary day for Ryan Day if that's
there's nothing that's going to get him fired in this game. Like I said, short of punching a player like Woody Hayes, there's nothing that's going to get him fired in this game. It's just too expensive for Ohio State to make that move when you factor all things in, not just his buyout, but the things that come after that with hiring a new staff. It's just not going to happen again, short of him punching a player where he's forced out. But if the game plan looks similar to what it was against Michigan at all in any way, if they still run the ball 35 times in that game, 35 times in that game, and they lose a 17-10 or a 21-10 game in which they score less than 20 points again, holy shit, it's going to be. I want to say loud, but it'll be deafening. It was loud after the Michigan, but it was almost deafening after the Michigan game. I don't even know how you turn the volume up on deafening, but it's going to be insane. So, but I don't think that'll be the case. When Ryan Day said on Sunday that they're going to have to help that offensive line out, I believe he meant it, and I believe that they know that, and they're going to have to. They're going to have to help that offensive line out. By the way they call this game, or the way Chip Kelly, game plans for this matchup, and I believe that that'll be the case. So whether it's good enough, we'll see. But I do believe that Ohio State will be a lot more creative and a lot more willing to just take their chances throwing the football.
Yeah, I think they're going to throw the football, have success, open up the run game. I mean, that's the way that they can open up their run game is they got to try to defend the pass. Now you got no one in the box. Now we can actually potentially run out, bounce out to the outside, get some. It's not run up the middle, or maybe you can because guys aren't expecting it. They're expecting to do a pass rush. So we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic. But hey, guys, with that being said, I feel like we've covered this game pretty good. What do you guys think? You want to wrap it up here?
Yeah.
Wrap it up. All right. So you can first and foremost, I guess it's not first, it's last. I can't speak English. Dillon, what are you writing about this week?
Not entirely sure yet. We have a lot of stuff going on at the Woody, so obviously some things will take shape just based off of what we get from that. I'll have my general recaps of all this stuff. And then again, we have 3 days worth of stuff this week, which is unprecedented because this moment's unprecedented. We haven't had a home playoff game. So that's cool that we're getting a little bit more coverage. So we'll see how that goes. Certainly I'm planning to write about the importance of this game for the trajectory of Ohio State's program. But in general, I don't have anything else cooking. We'll see what's said this week and take it from there.
Where can people follow you on X?
At Dillon, Dillon Davis 56. So again, because we have a lot of good stuff coming out of the Woody, I always have a lot of good video up on X throughout the week, following our interviews and things like that. So so give me a follow there, and then have some video and lead into Saturday.
And we have Andy is wired. What are you writing about? Did I say it wrong? Andy's wired. Andy's wired.
We'll see what these guys have to say, but I'm looking forward more to that, just the energy and the presence of these players and what I am feeling from them, and I'm probably going to go from there as far as what I'm going to write about. So,
well, awesome. All right, guys. Well, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Drew Sample, and follow Columbus Wired at Columbus_Wired. Leave some comments on this video here on YouTube. Like, comment, tell Andy that he needs to quit being such a doomer. All right, I'm just teasing. All right, thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Appreciate you, Jeff.
Right.
Yep.
Later.
See ya.